Sia to the 2022 secretary training. You'll see your executive board on the slide there. Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
Perfect, perfect. So let's see here. And I didn't know. Okay, so a little bit about me. Local Secretary Training by Andy Whalen. I am Andy Whalen. This year, I am parliamentarian for the Illinois Jaycees. I'm the secretary again for Bloomington, and then I am the individual development VP in Champaign.
Okay.
So I'm very involved in the Jaycees. I live and breathe it. And some of my past roles are below. I was the chapter president in Bloomington. I've been the secretary in Bloomington, the treasurer in Bloomington, and then I was region director of Region 4 last year, which is a smaller region than we have now. Now we have a little bit bigger regions. So it was a similar role to the ones you'll see this year, but a little bit different. So that's a little bit about me. And here is what we're going to be talking about today. I want to get to know you a little bit. We're going to be talking about how you can assist in the meeting preparation, how you can assist the board of directors, and then dive in a little bit about actually taking the meeting minutes. So Sia, tell me a little bit about you, what chapter you're from, and kind of your JC story, whether that's, if you want to tell me maybe why you JC, how long you've been a JC, just anything you want to give me a little background there.
Okay. I'm the JC secretary in Springfield, so a member of the Springfield Jaycees. I kind of joined during the COVID, so we were mostly online, but I still really liked everybody's like open and friendliness. So I stuck around, and then we started meeting in person. It's been really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. When I found the Jaycees, I was definitely looking for a group of friends first and foremost.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest reasons for joining.
People kind of look at me funny because they're like, well, it's a volunteer group. Don't you wanted to help, right? I'm like, yeah, of course. But also it's like nice to meet people.
Exactly. And it's nice to meet people with a similar vision who do want to help in the community. So it's a great place for that. So that's great. That's great. Well, do you have any questions, or do you want to start anything off before we just dive in?
No, go ahead. I'm ready.
All right, perfect. So the role of the secretary. The secretary oversees and executes all administrative duties of the local organization. The role may seem simple, but every step is crucial to the smooth day-to-day operations of the organization. Are you pretty familiar with the role? Have you seen someone be a secretary before?
No, not really. No.
Okay.
I mean, I knew the position existed, obviously, but.
Sure. Absolutely. So yeah, we'll really dive in then. And one thing that I want to point out too is that each chapter is very different. The secretary in Bloomington has different tasks than the secretary in Champaign. I'll talk about those chapters a lot because those are my chapters.
Okay.
And so, some secretaries will do a newsletter, some won't. Some secretaries create the agenda, some don't. It really just depends on your chapter. So it's very important in the role of secretary to have open communication with your president and the rest of your board of what is exactly is expected of me and when is it expected by. Do you know what some of those tasks will be that you'll be doing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Did anything surprise you?
I think it said social media could be a part of my position if I wanted it to be, and that was a little surprising.
Yeah, that is very surprising, but I think that it makes sense. If you're recording everything and filing everything, then you're kind of in the know.
Yeah, I know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Again, I'm not going to just read off of the slides because you can read them. But good meetings are very important because it shows people that we are more than a social group. We're more than a volunteer group. We do it and we do it well. We're organized and we operate by our bylaws. So it's important to have those good meetings. It really helps your membership thrive. So assisting in the meeting preparation, meeting date and time, planning any, I don't need to read these slides, but meeting at time and date, preparing the agenda potentially. I know in, like, for example, in Bloomington, when I was president, I prepared the agenda, but the secretary would take notes based off of the agenda. So it really just kind of depends. So it says work closely with your local president to prepare that well in advance. It is nice to get the agenda out to membership before the meeting so that they have an idea of what's going on. I found when I was president and secretary that the earlier I got the agenda out, the more participation I had in meetings because people had more time to prepare their thoughts to bring to the table.
Okay.
But if you send it too far in advance, they'll forget about it. So maybe about a week. And then meeting notifications. This is very important. I know that with all of the groups I'm involved with, sometimes it can get hard to keep track of what is when. So a notification the day before, the day of, just a reminder, that can be very helpful too. And then checking with the venue, make sure that where you're meeting, whether it's virtually or in person, make sure that all of your ducks are in a row and you have everything that you need. And then prepare documents and the venue. So then once you get there, you know, do you have your agendas printed? Do you have any PMGs that you need printed? Some chapters don't print theirs, some chapters do. So that is dependent on, you know, what Springfield's doing. But set up the room, you know, I think it's important to think about how you sit if you're in a room together. You know, is everybody lined up looking straight forward at the president, or is everybody in a circle looking at each other? Mixing that up a little bit can kind of be fun too. It can change some of the dynamics there. And then taking minutes. That is, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of being secretary. So we'll dive into that a little bit deeper here at the end of the slides. And then cleanup. It's important to leave things how you found it, especially maintaining a good reputation for the Jaycees. If you're renting or borrowing a space, you want to take ownership as the secretary of owning that and saying, you know, I'm going to be the one that makes sure this is exactly how we found it. And then send out the minutes. The minutes need to go out to the chapter. I don't know if you have like a newsletter group or a group that you specifically send the minutes to, but they should go out to the chapter because then generally they're approved at the next meeting. All right, I'm going to pause here. Do you have any questions so far? I think a lot of this stuff is kind of basic and what you would expect, but some of it might be new.
Oh, no questions.
Okay. And then assisting the board of directors. There's a lot of things that you can do to help the other board members. Again, you are a key source of information. You've got everything, you've got it organized, and you can be the go-to for a lot of different things. So keeping those records, it's very important to be organized and keep things in a system that, you know, I guess find your own system or use the system that was in place before you. I think that's pretty popular as well, as long as you understand it. I am a huge fan of Google Docs and Google Drive.
Yeah, that's what we use too.
Oh, that's perfect. It is so easy to make different files, you know, 2022 membership meeting minutes, 2022 board minutes. It's amazing. And then you can send them all out and everything. So are you adopting a pretty good system from last year?
I think, yeah, I don't think it's changed as far as I know. I think it's working smoothly.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's always nice if you're inheriting organized files already. that makes a big difference in the beginning of your year. And then managing the local organization calendar. And so this is something that I could have done a lot better of a job of when I was secretary. I was very new and I didn't even know that things that you could do. But you can go out to community calendars, you can go out to basically any radio station, any newspaper, any magazines in your area, any local places like that. And almost all of them have community calendars. And you can put your events on those calendars, and then sometimes they'll even promote them for you for free. Like on the radio, they'll go through their list of community calendar events on the radio without you having to talk to them at all, other than just putting it on there. And so and then also Jaycees calendar as well, making sure that things are very organized and put on that calendar. Do you guys use Google calendars as well?
I actually don't know. I was writing down calendar because I'm not sure if we have something like that. What were the other examples you gave for local event calendars besides the radio stations?
Sure. So newspapers
Newspaper.
or local magazines. Like I know there are in Bloomington, there are a lot of neighborhood magazines. And usually it'll be like a handful of people and they'll do several neighborhoods. So you just have to have contact with one person.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to think of where else. If I can think of anything else, I will reach out to you. But there are just calendars everywhere you can add your events to. It's pretty cool. So, all right. And then again, assist with local organization communications, be that liaison, make sure everybody's in the loop. Communication is huge. And if when in doubt, communicate it again. If you don't know if somebody has told somebody something that they need to know, take ownership of that as the secretary. And if they get the information twice, even better, right? But making sure that communication is consistent and open and out there is very important. All right, so provide administrative support. This kind of goes along with what we talked about, like getting agendas and PMGs ready and things like that. But there's also things like, I don't know if your chapter sends out birthday cards or maybe holiday cards or thank you letters. That can be a great tool to use. Do you guys do that now?
Not to my knowledge. I've received a birthday card, so maybe to members. Yeah.
So maybe check in. Maybe that's part of that might be something that you might be responsible for. Membership might be responsible for that. Every chapter is a little different. But just making sure you know who's got it under control. Because who doesn't love to get a birthday card in the mail now that a piece of mail that isn't a bill. So perfect. All right, and then prepare any annual reports that you need to. I know that when I was secretary, preparing the taxes and getting all the information to our accountant was one of my duties. Renewing our certificate of good standing, that was one of my responsibilities. Refer back to who was secretary last year, because these are things that need to be done every year, and it usually is the secretary's responsibility. And then another thing when I was preparing this training that I didn't even think of was pictures. Gather pictures throughout the year, pop them on that Google Drive. And then that can be part of your record keeping. I mean, what great way to record events other than taking pictures of it, right? So I thought that was really cool, something I haven't necessarily done in practice, but thought it was a good idea. All right. So do you have any questions about assisting board members?
I do not.
Okay. And then I wanted to dive in a little bit more to taking meeting minutes. And I say this because I'm parliamentarian this year for the state board, which means that I have to be very knowledgeable of like Robert's rules and the way to run a meeting and the way to take notes and everything like that. And so I learned a lot this year that I had no idea when I was secretary. So I'm happy to share this information with you because I was not doing it to the best of my ability before. But the meetings are a record. The minutes are a record of the meeting's procedure and what was accomplished during the meeting. There is a list of things that should be in the minutes. Like, for example, for your board meetings, it's good. I don't want to say you should, but it is good practice to list out all of your board members, who is in attendance and who is absent. For your membership meetings, some chapters, I'm sure Springfield is pretty big, are big enough where you don't necessarily have to list who all is there and who all is absent, but like how many votes were for and against a motion. Those types of things are details that are, your minutes are for if you ever had to go back and look at something. And if you ever have to go back to your minutes and refer to something, the more details, the better. And so lots of those little things that you don't necessarily think about. Do you have a structure for the way that you write your minutes?
Yeah, we do. And that was another thing that I inherited. And it's really nice. It has, it's almost like fill in the blank. Motion by blah, first did by, blank, second by blank. And then usually it just ends with motion carries because they usually do. So
Sure. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's great. I would love to see that document. That's fantastic.
Okay, for sure. I'm not even sure who made it, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. All right. So are there any other tasks? I know that it's only 120, but there's, only so much of secretary duties that we really need to dive into. Is there anything that I didn't go over that is part of your responsibilities that you want to talk through? Or is there anything, like that form that maybe would help me in doing a training like this or with my secretary duties this year?
Yeah. Do you think I need to ask the president or like the board person permission, or since it's Jaycees, I can just kind of share whatever? I don't know if there's protocol on that. Like I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem. Does that question even make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
I can't imagine it being a problem.
I can't either. Because
but if you're cautious about it, you can speak generally or whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, I'm sure I can share it like via your email.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Are you ready?
Yes.
So it's Andy Whalen, ANDIWHALEN 21@gmail.com. And anyone else that's watching this training, that email address is my personal email. Feel free to reach out to me for anything, JC, any questions about secretary or any other thing that I can help with. Yeah, absolutely.
Will there be a place I can access this presentation later?
I will send it to you.
Okay, great.
If you plan to send me an email anyway, then I'll just reply with it. Okay. And then I'm sure it'll go somewhere else as well.
It will be on our YouTube page, on the Illinois Jaycees YouTube, and then on our website too, with the rest of the lots trainings.
Awesome.
The recording will be, so yes.
Perfect.
And I know that on the JCI webpage too, and I believe in our resources, there are the local officer training kind of guides for each position. And also I know on jci.cc, I think there's some guides on agendas and how-tos
Nice.
and things like that too. So one other thing that I would add would just be if you make changes like on your system, like if you make a new filing system or you take on new roles or something like that, document them for the next person.
Mhm.
So then you can, share them the next year.
So it's nobody can be in the same position 2 years in a row.
You can, yes.
Automatically.
For Springfield, at least according to our bylaws, you can do it 2 years in a row,
Okay.
but that's the max you can
Okay.
be.
I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And personal question for you, or I guess general, the Jaycees, but what is the parliamentary position? Like, what do you,
So
what's your responsibility?
I am there as like a bodyguard for the rules of a meeting.
Mm.
And so, like I said, with Robert's Rules of Order, our board meetings have to follow certain procedures. We have to make motions in certain ways. We have to record things in certain ways.
Mhm.
Our discussion has to be structured in a certain way. And I'm like the bodyguard for that. So if a meeting is not following order, or discussion's getting out of hand, or it just needs to be reined back in, then I have to butt in and say, hey, wait a minute. Actually, we would need to motion for this and then have discussion. Or so I'm
Mhm.
there to kind of monitor and make sure that the rules are being followed. There's not always a parliamentarian, is what I'm gathering.
Mhm.
But there is this year, and I bought a book, Robert's Rules for Dummies, and it's
Uh-huh.
fantastic. I'm learning so much. I'm really glad I took the role. It's teaching me a lot. I'm on a lot of boards outside of the Jaycees as well, and
Uh-huh.
I'm learning just so much. It's really cool.
Cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to go over today? I know that it's kind of early, but I don't really have anything else for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for offering it.
Yeah, absolutely.